Welcome to the Stuff and Things Podcast, your home for all stuff related to your favorite things in entertainment. Now, here are your hosts.
Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of the Stuff and Things Podcast. I am Sam. Today we are talking about The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, Season 1 Finale, Episode 8. Joining me to go through the fine nitty gritty detail, well actually probably just have a good chat about it, it's my partner in crime, it's Stefan.
Hey buddy, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm good man, and you?
I'm good. Every time we talk about this show, I want to start by going, The Rings of Power. I know it's not even how the song goes, but it's just in my head.
Well, that's good. It's like you could do our own theme tune, that way no one will ever sue me.
This is true.
Yeah, which would be a nice change, actually. So we are talking about The Rings of Power, Season 1, Episode 8, the season finale, and the title of the episode was...
Alloyed.
You are not wrong, sir. So, alloyed is a... Well, do you know this? A metallurgy term?
It is, yeah. You can alloy two metals together.
Yeah.
Or multiple metals, really. But
yeah, basically it's the combining of metals and they become alloyed. So, yeah.
There's a science teacher somewhere that's proud that I remembered that.
Or screaming because we've got it ever so slightly wrong.
Either or, yeah.
Yeah, both. Yay! So I've made my notes, like I always do, and so I want to open up with what I'm going to class as kind of like the side story. For me, there's like two big things in this episode, and then a side story on the island of Numenor, where we see... I can never think of his character name. For me, he's just like the political operator there. I think it's because the time I learnt his character name, I was like, oh, I can't say that. But he is the guy who's, I think, is ready to try and remove the queen. So the king's daughter is ruled as like queen regent, whilst the king's been unwell. And I get the impression that he would quite happily like bump her to one side and take charge.
Quite quickly, I feel, yeah.
Yeah, and... he is there and he's overseeing the fact the king is now near death, which anyone who took a look at him would have seen that from episode 1, you know, ever since we met him. Now he is being tended to by the character whose name again escapes me. What's her name?
Erin, the daughter.
Erin. And she is Isildur's sister. And she is tended to the king, and the king has a kind of a bit of a senior moment, which we talk about the House of the Dragon, a Game of Thrones show, and it's almost like mirrored here.
You say tending, she's drawing his portrait, isn't she?
Oh, is she? I thought she was kind of there looking after him.
No, from what I got, there was a load of people that were being allowed to kind of draw his template, portrait,
okay.
And it was just her turn at the time where he starts to go, look through the door!
Yeah, and he opens up the secret passage which leads to the Seeing Stone.
Yeah.
And she obviously goes off and finds that. Now, one of the things that's interesting in amongst these scenes is we have when the king passes, you know, there's black flags all over the harbour, you know, everywhere in the city. So we then, a little bit later, have a scene where the queen, of course, we know is now blind. And she is coming back to Numenor, and you hear the land is sighted. And as they go up, the captain takes her up onto the deck, and she's like, and obviously she can sense there's a from the crew, and she's like, "What do you see?" And of course, the camera gradually pans around, and everywhere is black flagged. The king has died.
Yeah.
So I would say the Isle of Numenor is about to have some issues. I think her being blinded, I think the king gone, I think this is about to become a bit of a nightmare scenario for her.
Things aren't in her favour.
No, she gave her word that they were going to be going back. You know, we will not abandon you, we are coming back. I don't think she's going to be able to keep that promise, personally.
I don't see her going back, no.
No. Of course...
Or if she does, it's going to be just her on her own.
Yeah, well, hopefully with a guide, because, she can't see. So that's going on in Numenor, and that's kind of, for me, it was a bit like, here's this little bit here, because in Season 2, we may open with this. So, just so you're aware. Because the finale for me was really two core storylines. Galadriel and Halbrand, and the Stranger and the Harfoots.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you... let's go Stranger and the Harfoots. Let's kick off there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I'll tell you for why. Me and you had this conversation before we watched this episode, right? And it was funny because I had this 3 a.m. thunder lightning strike. I know Sauron is.
Mm-hmm.
And I messaged you and I know the internet have been saying this for a while, but there's been loads of theories like, oh, it's this guy, it's that guy, it's no one that we've seen. And me and you have discussed them all, but one of the ones we discussed really early on was Halbrand.
Yes.
And the one that we discussed it about is like dodgy guy on a ship, seemed perfectly happy to let everyone else die. Was quite, seemed a little bit taken with who Galadriel was. And also when he was in Numenor and he had that fight, we were like, okay, there's evil in this guy. He didn't just win that fight, he was pummeled him.
That's when we first kind of questioned, it could be this guy.
We were just like, this guy's clearly so, and when we kind of discussed it, and what I think was funny was me and you, we kind of at that point could have just gone, that's Sauron, and we'd have had enough evidence and we'd have felt confident enough about it, but we kind of talked ourselves out of it by going, but there's this.
But he's the king of the Southlands. Yeah. It's fine, yeah.
And there was like so many factors to it. So it's kind of interesting that, like I said, I had this 3 a.m. kind of like, it's got to be him. Because it was like all of these factors point to him. And, one of the part of the lore thing is that he kind of disguised himself for, he always took on multiple, things throughout the different ages. And he kind of hid in plain sight. And this could be their adaptation, if you like, of him doing that.
Yeah.
But then, because I messaged you that, and you were like, oh, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, you could be right. And then we've both watched the episode, which basically opens with the Slim Shady crew kneeling in front of the Stranger going, you are our Lord Sauron. I was like, oh, crap.
I think I messaged you. I was like, oh, wow. Yeah. First 5 minutes of the episode, there's that done.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be the last bit in the episode. Boom. Mic drop moment. Nope, straight at the beginning, cold open. Okay.
Yeah, it was just kind of like, oh, well, that theory's gone then. So,
yeah.
What's funny to me is I think the show did a very good job of, if, for example, that was Sauron, we'd have been like, oh, okay. They kind of made us think it might not be, kind of made us think it was other people, but that's who it is.
Yeah.
And, the way he comes slamming into the earth and stuff, and you're kind of like, oh, all right, that's interesting. It's not like he looked and he's done a few things. It's like, yeah, it's quite magical and quite good, but he has hurt people as well. So you could accept that, and then he obviously then starts to don the evil regalia and goes forward as a bad dude, and you'd accept it.
Yep.
But what's very funny to me is we're then seeing these scenes with the Harfoots, of course, we know, set off on their little adventure to try and track him down. Now, but they've tracked him down whilst he's with these three, I don't know what to call them, like, three kind of worshippers of Sauron?
Yeah.
Like zealots? I'm not sure, but they are carrying that staff, as, like you pointed out last week, resembles the eye, the eye.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like, yeah, so the Harfoots don't know what to do, but they decide that they are going to try and rescue the Stranger. At this point, I'm still looking at this thinking, well, if this is Sauron, and the show's told us it's Sauron, and it's Sauron, then the Harfoots are about to have a really bad day.
And they just...
Yeah. Because they're like, oh, come with us. And he's like, oh, I've got some of my memories back now. Anyone fancy a half-cooked Harfoot? You know, and so I'm kind of like looking at that thinking, why would they do that? You know, if I'm a writer for this show, like, that wouldn't make sense. So my brain started to go, they faked this. That's not Sauron. They faked this out. Now, did you have a similar thing, or was it?
No, I was the complete opposite way.
Oh, okay, so I
had accepted. They've told us that's Sauron. Okay,
yeah.
A bit of a disappointment to let us know that early
that
early on in the finale. But yep, okay. So now my thought process is okay. So at the moment, Sauron doesn't know or doesn't remember that's who he is as such.
Yeah.
So we've got that fun little conflict there of, but it's you and him going, but is it?
Yeah.
The Harfoots are about to come in and try and save him.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh my gosh, what this means is that even if the Harfoots do save him, at some point he's still going to get something to trigger him.
Well,
and then they are in for a really bad time.
Yeah, because that was the next kind of thing. Is like, if they do save him, then how long? Because we know that their plan is 5 seasons of this. And unless something goes crazy wrong at Amazon, that it's going to happen that way. So I'm sort of like, my brain sort of thinks, are we going to have like seasons of us knowing that this is Sauron, but him being like, oh, hey everybody, my little favourite Harfoot, and us thinking at any minute now he's just going to start snapping necks.
Which, in fairness, still would have been pretty entertaining, I think.
Well, yeah, entertaining, but like one of those kind of like, on edge, this isn't a good thing.
At any moment, he's just going to fry them all.
Or perhaps the reason why, Harfoots don't exist in the age that we've seen in the Lord of the Rings, like there's hobbits, which are clearly similar, is because all the Harfoots basically get taken out by this.
They get Sauron. Yeah.
So there is kind of that to me, but there is obviously this. The Harfoots aren't the brightest, God love them. And they see the stranger's been tied up, and they get there, and it's not. It's one of them is able to shapeshift.
It's the fact they're like, oh, there's 3 of them. Oh, there's only 2 of them now. Perfect.
Yeah, clearly.
I'm expecting the 3rd one to appear behind them or something.
No, actually shapeshifted into it, and we have this kind of big fight confrontation. And
the silly thing is that I should have seen that coming, because he had already shapeshifted into Nori to get the stranger's attention in the first place. Or, let's call him Sauron, because that's who we've been told he is. We've already been told that, they can shapeshift. He became Nori, got Sauron's attention by being Nori, and I'm like, should have seen that coming.
Yeah.
I didn't, but I should have.
Yeah, should have realised what that was. And I like the fact that the first indicator, or clear indication, is the eyes. The eyes changed back to the creature, the Slim Shady wannabe.
The blue kind of,
and so we get that, and the Harfoots are then scrambling. Sir Lenny Henry is taken out. And I know he's got a character name, but he's Sir Lenny Henry.
And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to put it out there, I'm quite glad it happened. Because I could not see him as Sadok Burrows. I was only seeing Sir Lenny Henry. It's weird, because there's so many shows that we watch, and there's so many shows that we watch that have characters and actors cross over.
Yeah.
And I never have a problem with it. But for some reason, Sir Lenny Henry was Sir Lenny Henry.
Well, what I would say is there are sometimes that just people are them. I mean, I thought he did a good job, and this isn't trying to have a pop at him for acting. But, like, for example, Harry Styles has joined the MCU. I don't care what character he is. It's just Harry Styles on screen. He's a singer. Yeah. It's like I'm not going to be able to get into whatever character that is. I just know that now. So there are certain people that are like that when they show up and think. I remember, like, watching Game of Thrones, and bloody Ed Sheeran suddenly showed up. And I'm like, well, that's not a character. That's Ed Sheeran. He's just sat there singing.
The King Arthur one where David Beckham was a god.
Oh, mate.
I remember that. I remember that one, and it was like, oh, it's Beckham. It's not. That's Beckham.
You know, like the old-fashioned films from like the 40s and the 50s, and they were the epics, and there was like the biblical epic, the greatest story ever told, and it was an all-star cast. Like of everyone at that time was in this film, and so they cast John Wayne. You know John Wayne.
Oh yeah.
Hey, pilgrim, get off your horse and drink your milk. You know, just like that. And they cast him as a Roman centurion who had one line in the whole film. And it's like, Jesus being crucified, there's this big thunder and lightning, and this centurion looks up and goes, truly he was the Son of God. And it cracks me up every time I watch that film, because it's like, seriously, you had an all-star cast of all the acting talent of the world were going to be in this film. You put John Wayne in, and you basically gave him that final line, and it sounds like a cowboy. Yeah, anyway, it's very funny to me. But focusing back to the show.
Yeah, no, you are right. There are certain actors. Yeah, unfortunately,
and
Lenny Henry was one of those.
He is falling into that trap, and he's gone. I mean, he is killed in this scene. I mean, he takes a while to die, but he is killed.
I quite liked his scene, everyone sit with me, let me watch the sunrise. I was like, that's quite a nice, like, it fits the character and the people of that.
The Harfoots, so, yeah. It was a decent end. Now the battle kind of is going on, and little Nori manages to steal the staff, and she gives it to the Sauron. Now
at this point, I'm going, oh kid, you've made some mistakes in this show so far, but that one.
Well, I think I said to you that I was kind of, my mind had started to go to, that's not Sauron, it can't be. My mind had started to sort of question it. Now, when she hands in that stick, it was like, well, this is the moment. because he's going to pick up that staff and be like, oh, I remember who I am. Dead little Harfoots.
That was kind of where my mind was. She's handed this over, and I'm like, I don't, like, I am not. I know there's a lot of fans here that know the books, they know the laws, they know everything. I am a fan of the 3 Lord of the Ring films, and I enjoy the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
I've not read the books. I don't know the lore and stuff. So this Nori character.
Keep in mind as well that these are shows written based on the lore, so this isn't following exactly, and people are online are going batshit about this, by the way.
Oh, I can imagine. But it's like, for me, I don't know the story of Nori Bandyfoot.
Yeah, good.
So at this point, she's just handed the Staff of Power to Sauron, who's kind of got his mind a little bit hazy, but has suddenly become a lot more intellectual and talkative and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is... Oh, okay, we're about to watch these guys get wiped out.
Well, yeah. Kentucky Fried Harfoot is what
I'm like, oh, no.
Now, there is fire everywhere, because these kind of acolytes, these, worshipper of the real Slim Shady, are torching the place, trying to kill the Harfoots. And then, poof, the fire goes.
Yeah.
And it's... and I'm going to take it back now to the stranger. He's got the staff, and then they freak out, because they realise... it's not Sauron.
Yeah, you're not Sauron. Yeah. And I'm sat there going, holy fuck,
now,
what?
In that moment they say you're not Sauron, does it just click in your brain straight away that it's Gandalf?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've done, this is what, episode 8?
Yeah.
We have done 7 podcasts going, imagine if that was Gandalf.
Yeah.
And basically talked ourselves
out
of the fact that that is Gandalf. And all of a sudden,
it's the most
I am just
obvious,
losing my shit.
It's the most obvious thing. It looks like him. Like, literally, like the hair, everything like that.
It looks like Gandalf.
He lands with the Harfoots, who basically teach him how to be and look after him, which would explain his massive affection for hobbits.
Yep.
And, so, like, every aspect it's obvious who it is. And yet, this show did such an amazing job of going, look how obvious this is. but we're going to make you question it until the last minute.
They may as well have put a badge on him, like, hi, my name is.
Yeah, my name is Gandalf. But then, so with a question mark at the end. So you're going, oh, they're messing with us.
Yeah.
But yeah, he is not Sauron. He is Gandalf. And he wrecks them. Those three
I am
gone.
good. And it's like, fuck yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yes.
He nails them. They're gone. Yeah. Those acolytes are no more. Yeah. They are cast back to the shadows from whence they came. I was like, yes, bring it on.
Yes.
So I love that. I love the what, just to round off this side of the story then, the Harfoots with the stranger reunited back with their kind of group.
Yeah.
Sir Lenny's gone. They obviously have to explain to everyone that Sir Lenny is gone.
Yeah.
And then we have this kind of moment where they're preparing to move, because that's what they do.
the woman reading the map absolutely killed me.
Upside down.
It's like 2 weeks of perfect downhill, no nothing. Look, this is amazing. Turn the map up. It's mountains and thorns for weeks.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, no, that did absolutely crack me up. That was brilliant. Now, what I also liked here is her family are like, this isn't you. You know, you are, you've never been wanting to walk with the caravan. You've never, you've got a chance to go here. And what I loved is we're still kind of, I know it's Gandalf, but they've not confirmed it's Gandalf. So it could be just some random ass wizard at this point.
Yeah.
But then there are two things I think that happen that kind of, for me, it was the adventure.
Talking about adventures and journeys. Now, an adventure you share with more than one person. A journey is a trip on your own. It's like,
and I was kind of like, okay, all right, hang on. You're telling us now, aren't you? You're telling us
Bilbo on a journey, but Frodo on an adventure. Yeah. I know what's happening here.
Yeah, so that was kind of great. And then, so she's going to go with him, and it's a really nice thing. Nori and the stranger are going to leave together, and she's kind of like, where are we going? He's like, I don't know. He's like, oh, wait, this way. The air smells sweeter. And I was like, oh, he's going to say it. When in doubt, follow your nose. And I was like, boom, it's Gandalf, baby. So that
just in case we needed that little confirmation. Follow your nose.
Yeah, and that was it. You don't need him to wear the name badge now. We know who that guy is.
Yeah. And IMDb is still calling him the stranger. What do they know?
Yeah, what do they know? Fools. What I love is that we now know that over the series of this, we're going to follow his journey. Yeah. And I kind of love that. I kind of love that we're going to get to follow Gandalf.
We now know, season 2 is going to be Nori and Gandalf.
Yeah.
The carrying on. It's like,
and he is going to be trying to find out. He also talks about, they called you this. And he's like, yeah, the translation in your tongue basically is wizard.
Yeah, wise man or wizard. And I'm like, yeah, he is.
Yeah, you are.
He's going to tell you to look to the hill on the third morning in a minute, and that's just going to, be fine.
What is funny is the Harfoots and the kind of story with the Harfoots during this has been, for me, something that's really slowed the pace down. So on a regular basis, I've been a bit like, Harfoots again, roll my eyes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's always been the stranger aspect, which has always been kind of like, well, who is that? That's bugging me now. and to get to the end of it, where we are going to see this young Harfoot and Gandalf go off on an adventure, I'm actually into that. I'm kind of keen. Season 2, the opening scene of season 2 is them. I'm going to be over the moon. So I'm really happy with that, and I think again it goes to show it's good storytelling, because at the beginning you wouldn't have got me saying I'm interested really in Harfoots, other than oh look, they're like little hobbits that move around. But yeah, by now I'm happy. Now I'm kind of like, oh okay, this is good. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah, and I wonder if Poppy's going to take over the kind of the caravan. There's the line about, why don't you lead them? Look in her face, and I'm like, so we could still have with Poppy giving her the Samwise speech of how bestest best friends ever and all this sort of thing. And I'm like, so I wonder how that doesn't write them out of season 2 either, because there could still be the interaction there. And
I would very much like to think we see the Harfoots discover and settle, and therefore evolve to become
find the Shire.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're moving around constantly because they feel like they're under threat, and if you found your own place, your own land, your own place to be, it'd just be interesting to me if that happens. That would be kind of a fun thing to see, like the origin of the Shire.
I'd like that, to be fair.
Yeah, I'd enjoy that. Okay, so now we're going to step across into the storyline of Galadriel. Galadriel takes Halbrand, who is injured and needs elvish medicine, conveniently, and is taking him to the elves. When she arrives, by the way, and this is kind of funny because the last time the elves saw Galadriel, they were sticking her on a boat and kicking her off.
It was kind of like banishing, but with a praise.
Yeah, like seriously, you have got to stop, woman. You're relentless, so we're kind of kicking you home because you're a royal pain in the ass.
Yeah, you get to go live the chosen life in this area, nowhere near us.
Yeah, the High King doesn't look that impressed to see her.
No.
I will say that
he doesn't look impressed by anything ever, this guy.
No, that's also fair. He doesn't look that impressed to see her at all. I will say that, again, it's kind of funny because Elrond is a little bit like that himself. Elrond's like, what the are you doing here? But at the same time, delighted to see her. Which is kind of nice. You learn a little bit about their connection. Elrond was basically orphaned. So Galadriel and her family kind of took him in, which I think shows their bond.
Yeah.
Which was a nice little detail to learn in this.
It also shows that we were wrong in episode 1 when we said, oh, maybe he's got a bit of a thing for her.
Yeah, it does. It does show we were less right.
Yeah.
The elves managed to heal Halbrand because they're badass like that.
Yeah.
And then
I'm gonna regret that.
So there's yeah, I know, aren't they ever? So I've got to try and get his name right. Celebrimbor.
That guy.
Celebrimbor.
The Lord.
Yep. Yeah, he is there, and Halbrand comes down to talk to him. Now, there's this funny moment in this where Halbrand says something to him that absolutely piqued me to, oh wow, I think I am right. Like, I've gone backwards and forwards so many times. And he's talking about, like, oh, we're trying to, this precious metal, and we're trying to do this, that, and the other. And he's like, oh, I've heard of Lord Celebrimbor, my former master, thought really highly of you.
Yeah.
And see, the thing is like, oh, it's smithing, and the smithing in, like, my master smith, I was an apprentice. All of that tracks, that terminology tracks, but it was just the way he said it. It just kind of, like, I really piqued my interest. It was just like, well, hang on a minute. That sounded that didn't sound like a smith. He's not talking like he's a blacksmith. He's talking like, my former master. And so I was kind of, okay, hang on, that's caught my interest.
Yeah.
But what I found really interesting is Halbrand carried himself and spoke very differently than I've seen him in any other episode when he was around Celebrimbor.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like he was suddenly really knowledgeable about alloys and metals, and suddenly he was on a level of intelligence that we wouldn't really have expected from this guy. And I'm watching it and I'm kind of thinking I might be overthinking this, but clearly it was part of the show because Galadriel picks up on it.
Yeah.
Like, she hears him speak a couple of times and you could see she's sort of like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound like the sort of humble guy. And so she sets a researcher off, kind of like she's like, get me the historical records for the Southlands, the throne. And the funny thing is, this guy's just like, oh, they might not be complete, like, starts sort of bemoaning that he's been sent off to do it. She's like, yeah, get on with it. Yes, my lady. This guy returns at one point. Galadriel's there, and she's had a good read. And then we see Halbrand come out to talk to her. And the look on her face suggests that she's just realised he's a lying shit.
Yeah, that is not... So in the last episode, we spoke about, again, romantic potential interest when they sat there after the battle, and it's like...
And I think that's real.
If that guy hadn't have come and interrupted them, could there have been a moment there? Yeah. And now it's like, oh dear.
So she has hunted Sauron ever since her brother's death. She has taken it as her quest that Sauron needs to be eliminated to drive the evil, the Morgoth era, all of that, to kill it, to end it. And so, in this moment, she's only realised that he's lied. She's only realised that the throne of the Southlands is gone. That line is gone.
Yeah.
And he says, well, I did tell you I took it off a dead body. And he did.
In fairness, he
literally did tell her that. And so, probably because I had this bolt of lightning the night before and I'd messaged you and everything, and at this point in the episode we're kind of doubting the reveal early on and stuff. And when she says, who are you? The minute I knew who he was when he said, I've been known by many names.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, wow, it is Halbrand.
Yeah, and she's been travelling with him and being allies with him, and I'm like, oh.
And basically was getting ready to go to bed with him, I think, so it is Sauron.
And talk about sleeping with the enemy.
Quite literally, in this case, yeah. And so he kind of does this thing where he, says, I think I've been around since before the first sound, or something like that, and it's like, oh, wow. And then he gets in her head, literally gets in her head, and she starts to see visions of her brother. And her brother's like, no, I got it wrong. Sauron isn't looking to destroy Middle-earth, he's looking to save it. And I'm kind of like, okay, that's not the guy we know.
No.
And so it goes on, and then there's this interaction between the two of them where they're back on that kind of wrecked ship, the boat, and he says to her, I want you to be by my side. And there's a line in this where he says to her, you'll be as powerful as this, and you'll be, from the very foundations of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminded me that in Lord of the Rings, there's a moment where Frodo offers her the ring. And she kind of has to stop herself. But before she stops herself, she has this massive kind of I would be a queen, beautiful, but as treacherous as the sea. And she actually says, and stronger than the foundations of the earth. So it's kind of amazing to me that all this time earlier, Sauron's saying that to her, and they've kind of brought that line back, that kind of foundations of the earth thing. It's a nice tie into the films.
It's good, and it's an advantage they have of when you make a prequel like this, to be able to have Gandalf follow your nose, and Galadriel lines like this. It's nice that they've got that material already there that the fandom know.
Yeah.
So just dropping a little line like that into Sauron's speech has made, like you said, people have gone, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, it is good.
Bloody clever, that is.
No, I agree with you, and it was just kind of it adds a little bit of power to it. Now, she does turn him down, obviously, but the thing I liked about it was she was I think there was real emotion there, real affection to Halbrand, and so when he's talking, she is giving him the sort of time of day for a moment, but the minute he says. She clarifies, you want to bring peace to Middle-earth by ruling it. And he's like, well, yeah, I don't see a difference. And she's like, yeah, that's why you're a piece of shit.
Basically,
yeah, and holds the dagger to him. Now, the next part is she's drowning. That time where he dived in to save her?
Yep.
So it's like that again, but obviously he's not diving in to save her. But then wakes up in this shallow pool of water. Elrond's got her what the hell's going on? What are you doing? She races back to sort of see, where's Halbrand, what's going on. Now, this next part, I don't fully understand, so I'd love to get your take on it. She says that we will never have him here again. He cannot be around us anymore. None of us will ever converse or anything with him again.
Yep.
And Celebrimbor was kind of like, yeah, all right, whatever, I'm busy. But Elrond obviously goes to question it a little bit, and she just kind of shuts him down with like, you love me, you trust me, you don't ask.
Now, for me, I'm kind of like, no, I would want to know, why are we now not allowed to talk to the man that just told us how to make the metals good?
And you've brought here, you've brought this guy here. Clearly, we've just saved it. Who is he? Who have you just discovered he is?
Whose life have we just saved?
Yeah, and he does review those. He finds the Southlands charts himself, so he looks at it, so he knows that he's a liar. He knows in that he isn't who he said he was. So therefore, Elrond's just not questioning Galadriel because she's basically shut him down. But my question is, and please give me your opinion, why hasn't she gone straight in there and gone, that was Sauron, let's track his ass?
Yeah, she's spent the last 8 episodes or 7 episodes wanting to kill this guy.
Yeah.
And now she's just let him wander off.
Do you think that it is actually because she had developed feelings for him and now she's feeling really conflicted or possibly really stupid? Like really, oh my god, none of my people are ever going to have faith in me again.
I do wonder, because we've spoken before about how the elves kind of hold themselves to this kind of higher power, we are almighty and better than everyone.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you just got tricked like a common fool.
Yeah. Yeah, I do wonder if it's...
Considering the elves sent her away in the first place, she's now come back, brought the bad guy with her, who's tricked her and left, and she's just sat there like, I am telling none of you guys.
So my next thing is, knowing that he came up with the solution to their problem of how they could use the Mithril, how they could save Elvenkind, is it a surprise to you that she tells them to continue, or like they do continue? Because she knows who he is, and so she knows inherently his goals are domination and to rule.
Mm-hmm.
So why would he be handing them the power to stay there? It's like she's not questioning it.
Yeah, you would think if he wants to dominate, then surely taking out everyone that opposes him.
Yeah.
So
the elves being forced to leave would be in his interest.
Yeah, so that was a bit of a strange moment.
Yeah, but sorry, pardon me. They do forge these 3 rings,
and
the elves. So the 3 elven rings of power are forged.
Yeah, because originally they were talking about making a crown with a gem in it, and he's like, "No, make it smaller, make it better, make more of them."
And I like the fact...
Galadriel, isn't it? Galadriel says, no, you need 3 because...
balance,
Yeah, which I liked. That was cool.
Yeah, that was good. It was a good rationale as to why it was 3. And, yeah, it just kind of, like... Yeah, it... like, for me, it just was a nice scene. Like, we saw the forging of these 3 rings. And, very pretty, very elvish, like, nice gemstones on them. I liked that, and I felt as an ending to season 1, that was kind of like epic. That was kind of that was a really good visualization of these rings being forged.
Mm-hmm.
So who gets them, do you think?
Well, that is the question. I'm assuming, obviously, you'd expect the king to have one.
The Elvish High King surely is getting one, yeah.
After that, you've then got to kind of question Elrond, but
Elrond and
you would
Galadriel.
think Elrond, but then at the same time, he's not really. He's like an advisor, but he's nothing too special. Galadriel has obviously already been banished once.
Yep.
She's probably not that high on his list.
No. So that was kind of it, and I imagine that might get explored now. Like, okay, we've made these rings. This will enable us, Elvenkind, to stay here. But who is responsible for wielding that power, that influence?
Yeah.
So that's going to be kind of an interesting thing, I think. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have any other notes, but I just wanted to just say that the whole series and the finale, I really enjoyed. I felt it built. We talked about I didn't feel the pacing was right early on, but when you sort of sit back and look at the whole thing, like a whole 8 episode, basically 8 and a bit, possibly 9-10 hours worth if you add it all up of television.
Yeah.
Wow. The visuals, the everything about it, the money they spent, you can tell it was the money they spent. Like, everything about this show was just wow. It looked amazing.
Yeah, like, I don't think we've seen anything this visually impressive for a while. Like,
no, I'd agree. In television,
in
stop.
Game of Thrones, for example, I know a lot was said about Winterfell and King's Landing and stuff in Game of Thrones being very epic and grand and looking amazing. But I honestly think, like, visually wise, this has beaten it.
Yeah, I agree with you. What about you then? So I know you weren't enjoying it early on, and I know you got into it as the pacing and stuff changed. Are you at a point like the series ended, you gone, oh, or are you kind of like, all right, that was okay, or where's your head on it?
The first 2-3 episodes I really struggled.
Yep.
As the show went on, the more into it I got.
Yeah.
I've now, the finale I thought was brilliant. I thought it was a really good last. To be fair, I thought it was a really good last 3 episodes. Yeah. The last 3 episodes I thought were brilliant. I didn't finish the finale and kind of go, oh. But at the same time, I am now peaked of interest for season 2. It's done its job in the sense of I will watch season 2 and I look forward to season 2.
Yeah.
My only worry is season 2 is going to start the same slow pace as this season did, and then I'm going to have to do 3 episodes to get myself back into it. Like, oh, come on. Well, I know it's going to get good. I know it's going to get good because the last season did.
It is possible it could be that way, or perhaps because you now have character recognition, you won't feel that, even if the pacing is slower. Because when the pace is slow and you don't know who the hell anybody is,
it was difficult.
Yeah. When you're kind of like following Gandalf, going on a walk, you're like, it's Gandalf, going on a walk, go on Gandalf.
Yeah. Gandalf just picked an apple out of a tree.
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't even use his hands.
Yeah, so it could be that it's kind of like a bit slow, but at the same time, you're more into it because you know who the characters are. I kind of felt like the end of season 1 wrapped quite nicely. Like, I felt like there was a real resolution. But the kind of final scenes, if you like, were the scene of him, now Sauron as we know, arriving and looking at Mount Doom. Yeah. That was so amazing.
Yeah.
That shot, and he's now, you can see he's a bad guy,
Oh,
and
bagger.
Yeah, and it was so good, and you're kind of like, yeah, it's wrapped quite nicely. We now know who he is. We now know who, that is. We now have a resolution to this and a resolution to that. But at the same time, it's kind of like, tell me more of these stories, please. So, yeah, I felt it was a really good show, a really good finale, build into the finale, and then an actual really good finale episode.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm looking forward to season 2. I'm not entirely sure if they're going to hit the same dates or what the plan is with that, but I will keep an eye out for it. Mate, were there any other points you wanted to cover from the finale?
I don't think so. I think we've covered we said, the Half-Foots are going to go off, and it looks most likely that Poppy may become the leader.
Yeah.
They may well appear in the next season. We've got Nori and the Stranger off on their way. Elrond, would be fun to see kind of what happens with Elrond and the Dwarves. I'd quite like to see. We're still wondering what's going to happen with the elf and dwarven story that's going to kind of go so wrong. Yeah. The only thing I kind of worried, I wondered more about anything else, was Captain Elendil.
Yeah.
His son is not shown at all. And I'm like, but we're 99% certain.
Well, he has to reappear.
Yeah. Like, we know he's alive because of future base. So we're like 99% certain he's going to reappear at some point in this show.
Absolutely, yeah. I think in season 2 he'll be discovered in amongst the like survivors or something, and people are going to realise who he is, and he's going to start to lead. I think you think about the people of the Southlands. The Southlands doesn't exist anymore.
No.
But all of those people are going to need to try and relocate. Now, I personally think we're going to see the foundation of Gondor. I think the city, the kingdom, and that, and I think it's going to be these people migrating to these lands.
That could start all that. Yeah.
Because one of the things I remember about Numenor, when I first saw it, was like, oh wow, is this Gondor? That looks identical to like Gondor. And then what I realised was, no, I think perhaps people from Numenor founded Gondor and therefore made it look like. So that's where my head is at the moment, and I'm thinking Isildur is kind of the man for that. So
it would make sense. That would make the most amount of sense, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So that's where I'm at, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to these stories, and I've got theories, etc., and I like it. And I know there's a lot of people out there, Lord of the Rings, who are die hard into the details in the books, and they're very unhappy. I'm far more kind of, oh, I like this, let entertain me. And there are other shows where I'm a bit more, this isn't like this.
See, I think that's where I have that advantage of not the books.
Yeah, not knowing, and just being able to sit back and be entertained. And I hope a lot of people are in that boat, because it is definitely entertaining. But anyway, that is our show. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back really soon to discuss many other things. So if you're interested in Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, we're talking about that right now. Anything to do with Marvel, as and when it comes out, we'll be discussing it on our show. The OG, the original, the Walking Dead is back for its final episodes. Yes. We are talking about that every Wednesday for Walking Dead Wednesday. But yeah, so keep an eye out. Oh, and also if you're a Star Wars fan, the current series Andor, we're talking about that every week as well. So keep an eye on our socials. You'll find every show we're talking about. Obviously next year, when the Lord of the Rings Rings of Power return, so will we. But until then, everybody, you all take care.
The Rings of Power!
Thank you for listening to the Stuff and Things podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. You can find us on Facebook or online. Simply search the Stuff and Things podcast to join in our conversation every week.